At 4:13 every morning, Elena Moretti unlocked the back door of Belladonna Bakery and listened for footsteps that never came. The habit had begun 11 years ago, on the night her father vanished. She still performed the same quiet ritual, key between two fingers, shoulder against the blue-painted door, eyes on the alley's broken security light. Then she stepped inside, locked 3 deadbolts, and rested her palm against the cool metal until her breathing settled. Only then did she turn on the ovens. By sunrise, the bakery smelled of browned butter, orange peel, and warm sugar. Rows of cornetti gleamed beneath the display glass. Rosemary focaccia cooled on wooden racks. Elena moved between counters with practiced efficiency, her dark curls pinned high, flour dusting the generous curve of her hips and the front of her black apron. People often mistook softness for fragility. They rarely made that mistake twice. 3 wedding cakes, 2 catering orders, and Mrs. Russo wants another refund because her grandson ate the entire lemon tart before dinner, said Mia, Elena's teenage assistant. Then the tart performed exactly as designed. Mia grinned. "You're terrifying before coffee. I'm terrifying after coffee too." The front bell chimed. Both women looked up. The man who entered did not belong among pastel cake boxes and handwritten chalkboards. He wore a charcoal overcoat, tailored to broad shoulders, dark gloves, and the expression of someone who had already measured every exit. 2 men remained outside, beside a black sedan. Neither pretended to check his phone. The stranger removed 1 glove. A pale scar crossed his right knuckle. Elena's fingers tightened around the piping bag. She had seen that scar before. Not on him. In a photograph hidden beneath her mother's floorboards. "Coffee," he said. His voice was low, controlled, and unmistakably accustomed to obedience. Elena set down the piping bag. "We have 12 kinds of pastry, 6 breads, and a breakfast menu people drive across the city for. You walked into a bakery and ordered coffee." His gaze shifted to the display case, then back to her. "Black. Of course." Mia glanced between them, before hurrying to the machine. The man's attention settled on the silver chain around Elena's neck. The pendant beneath her blouse was hidden, but his eyes remained there long enough to make her skin prickle. "Have we met?" she asked. "No. You seem disappointed." "I'm rarely disappointed." The bell rang again. One of the men from outside entered, leaned close to the stranger, and whispered something in Italian. Elena caught only 3 words. "Back room, last night." The stranger's expression did not change, but the air around him did. Mia placed the coffee on the counter. Her hand shook hard enough to rattle the saucer. The stranger noticed. He slid a $100 bill toward her. "Keep it." "We don't take intimidation tips," Elena said. His eyes returned to hers. For one breath, the bakery went silent, except for the soft ticking of the oven timer. Then the corner of his mouth moved. Not a smile, exactly, but the memory of one. "Then consider it payment for the coffee. It costs $3. I value efficiency. I value correct change." She placed $97 on the counter. The man looked at the bills, then at her. Something sharpened behind his calm expression. Respect, perhaps, or suspicion. He took the change. Outside, a delivery truck rumbled past. Its reflection slid across the bakery windows, briefly masking the sedan and the men beside it. When the street appeared again, a 3rd figure stood across the road. A woman in a red coat. Elena's breath caught. The woman raised a gloved hand to the glass, 2 fingers touching her lips. Then she turned and disappeared into the morning crowd. Elena left the counter without explanation. She pushed through the front door, scanned the sidewalk, and saw only commuters, umbrellas, and a taxi pulling away from the curb. "Elena?" Mia's voice came from behind her. The stranger had followed them outside. "Who did you see?" he asked. "None of your business." "It became my business when she followed one of my men here." Elena faced him. "You know her?" "No." The lie arrived too smoothly. A metallic click sounded from the alley. The stranger moved first. His hand closed around Elena's waist, pulling her against the brick wall as the bakery window exploded. Glass sprayed across the sidewalk. Mia screamed. The stranger covered Elena's head with one arm, while his men drew weapons and rushed toward the alley. Shoppers scattered. A car horn blared. Somewhere, a child began crying. Elena pushed against his chest. "Mia, she's behind the counter. You don't know that. I saw her drop." Elena twisted free and ran inside. The display case had shattered. Pastries lay beneath glittering shards. Mia crouched by the espresso machine, both hands over her ears. Elena dropped beside her. "Are you hurt?" Mia shook her head. A bullet had lodged in the wooden shelf behind the register, not where Elena had been standing. Where the stranger had stood. He entered moments later, calm restored, though a thin line of blood marked his cheek. His men returned with no one. "Shooter escaped through the service corridor," one said. Elena rose slowly. "Get out." The stranger looked at the bullet hole. "So they can try again?" he asked. "This is my bakery, and someone just fired into it. At you." His silence lasted half a second too long. Elena stepped closer. "Who are you?" The man removed a white handkerchief and pressed it to his cheek. "Dante Russo." Mia made a small sound. Elena knew the name. Everyone in New York knew it, though few said it loudly. Russo Shipping owned half the private docks along the eastern waterfront. Russo Foundation paid for hospital wings, scholarships, and legal clinics. Newspapers called Dante Russo a reclusive businessman. The people who whispered in kitchens after midnight used another title, Mafia boss. Elena folded her arms. "Dante Russo drinks bad coffee and attracts bullets before breakfast." The coffee was acceptable. "Leave." His gaze traveled across the broken glass, the trembling girl behind the counter, and the untouched tray of almond croissants near the oven. Then he looked at Elena again. "The shot wasn't meant for me." She felt something cold move through her. "You were standing in front of the shelf." "No." He pointed to the bullet's angle. "The shooter fired from above street level. The trajectory crossed where you stood, before you ran outside." Mia stopped crying. Elena looked at the hole again. Dante stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Someone waited for you to move back into position. The woman in the red coat had drawn her outside. Then the bullet had come." Elena's hand went to the chain beneath her blouse. Dante saw the movement. This time, he caught the pendant before she could hide it. A small silver bell hung from the chain, its surface engraved with a thorned rose. His fingers went still. "Where did you get this?" Elena pulled it from his grasp. "It belonged to my father." "What was his name?" "You first." "You know my name. I know the one on your buildings." His jaw tightened. Before he could answer, a police siren wailed in the distance. Dante's men exchanged a glance that Elena did not miss. "You should go," she said, "unless your public relations team enjoys explaining armed men outside bakeries." Dante ignored the sirens. "Your father's name?" Elena held his gaze. "Marco Moretti." For the first time, Dante Russo lost control of his expression. Not fear, recognition. He turned toward one of his men. "Seal the alley. Find every camera within 6 blocks. No copies leave our possession." "You don't give orders here," Elena said. He looked back at her. "Your father died 11 years ago. My father disappeared." He was declared dead. Declared isn't buried. The approaching sirens grew louder. Dante studied her face, as if searching for traces of another man. Then he reached into his coat and placed a black business card on the counter. No company logo, no address, only a phone number embossed in silver. Close the bakery. I have orders. Cancel them. I have employees. Send them home. I have a life. His eyes lowered to the pendant. Not the one you think. He walked out before the first police car reached the curb. For the next 2 hours, Elena answered questions. No, she had not seen the shooter. Yes, she had seen a woman in a red coat. No, she did not know why Dante Russo had entered her bakery. That last answer felt less true every time she repeated it. By noon, plywood covered the broken window. Mia's mother had taken her home. Police tape fluttered across the front door. Elena stood alone in the kitchen, scraping ruined pastries into a trash bin, when she heard a soft thud above her. The old storage loft. She froze. Another sound followed. Wood sliding against wood. Elena picked up the heavy rolling pin her grandmother had used for 30 years and climbed the narrow staircase. The loft smelled of dust, cinnamon, and rain leaking through old brick. Boxes lined the walls. A flour sack lay overturned near the far window. No one was there. Then she noticed the floorboard beneath her father's desk. It had been pried open. Inside the hollow space rested an object wrapped in waxed paper. Elena set down the rolling pin and unfolded the paper. A leather ledger. Her father's initials were burned into the cover. MM. Beneath them was the same thorned rose engraved on her pendant. She opened the ledger. The first pages contained dates, shipping numbers, and names she did not recognize. Several entries were marked with red ink. Others had been violently crossed out. Near the middle, she found a photograph. Her father stood beside a younger Dante Russo. Between them was the woman in the red coat. On the back, her father had written 6 words. Dante must never learn she survived. A floorboard creaked behind Elena. She turned, gripping the ledger to her chest. A man stood at the top of the stairs. Not Dante. One of the police officers who had questioned her that morning. He closed the loft door and drew his gun. "Give me the book, Elena." Elena did not look at the gun. She looked at the officer's shoes. Brown leather, rainwater along the soles, white powder caught in the stitching, flour. He had been inside the loft before the shooting. "You came through the alley," she said. The officer's expression hardened. "The book. You knew where it was. I know a great deal about your family." He lifted the gun toward her chest. Elena's fingers pressed into the cracked leather cover. The ledger was too large to hide, the staircase too narrow to pass him, and the window behind her opened onto a 3-story drop. She let her shoulders sag. "You win." The officer's eyes flicked to the book. That was all she needed. Elena threw the ledger toward the leaking section of roof. He turned instinctively. She swung the rolling pin into his wrist. The gun fired. A box of old cake tins burst open beside her. Metal clattered across the floor as the officer cursed and grabbed her apron. Elena drove her knee into his thigh, but he held on, dragging her toward him. "You should have stayed behind the counter." She slammed her forehead into his nose. His grip loosened. Elena lunged for the gun, but he kicked it beneath her father's desk and caught her by the hair. Pain flashed across her scalp. He shoved her against the wall, forearm crushing her throat. "You have no idea what Marco stole." She clawed at his sleeve, searching for leverage. Below them, glass broke. The officer heard it too. His head turned. A voice rose from the bakery kitchen. "Elena, Dante." The officer pulled a knife from his belt and pressed it beneath her ribs. Tell him you're alone. Elena stared at the loft door. Dante called her name again, closer now. The blade nicked through her blouse. Elena drew a careful breath. Your coffee is still terrible, she shouted. Silence. The officer frowned. Then the loft door exploded inward. Dante's first shot struck the knife from the officer's hand. His second hit the wall beside the man's head, close enough to shower plaster across his face. Dante entered with the stillness of an executioner. Move away from her. The officer raised both hands, blood running from his nose. Russo, this isn't what you think. Dante's gaze moved to the torn fabric beneath Elena's ribs. I think you touched her. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. The officer moved quickly, reaching for a second weapon at his ankle. Dante fired once. The man collapsed with a bullet through his shoulder. Two of Dante's guards rushed in and restrained him. Elena pushed herself away from the wall. He's a police officer. He's wearing a police uniform. That distinction should concern everyone. Dante approached her, but stopped before touching her. His eyes searched her face, throat, and hands. Are you hurt? I'm angry. I can see that. Can you? His jaw shifted. Yes. One of the guards recovered the ledger from beneath a stack of roof tiles. Dante reached for it. Elena took it first. No. That book is why someone shot at you. That book belonged to my father. Your father was connected to men who kill for less. So are you. The wounded officer laughed from the floor. Everyone looked at him. You still don't know, do you? He said to Elena. He didn't come here for coffee. Russo knew Marco's daughter owned this bakery. Dante said nothing. The silence answered for him. Elena's grip tightened around the ledger. You knew who I was. I suspected. You said we had never met. We hadn't. You let me stand there and believe you walked in by accident. I never said it was an accident. The officer laughed again, softer this time. Ask him what happened at Pier 19. Dante turned to his guards. Take him downstairs. The officer resisted as they hauled him upright. Ask him who signed the order, he shouted. Ask him why they never found your father's body. A guard struck him across the mouth. Stop, Elena said. The guard froze. Elena stepped toward the officer. What order? He smiled through blood. The one that made you an orphan. Dante seized the front of his uniform. Who sent you? The officer's smile vanished. A high, electronic chirp came from his jacket. Dante released him and stepped back. Get down. He pulled Elena behind the desk. The officer's body jerked. No explosion followed. Instead, smoke poured from his breast pocket. One of the guards tore open the jacket and removed a burning phone, dropping it into an empty metal pan. The officer stared at the ruined device with panic in his eyes. They erased it, he whispered. Who? Elena asked. He looked toward the loft window. A red point appeared on his forehead. Dante shoved Elena down. The window cracked. The officer's head snapped backward. For one suspended second, nobody moved. Then Dante's guards returned fire through the broken glass, while the officer fell across the floorboards. Elena stared at the spreading blood. The man had threatened her less than a minute ago. Now his eyes held nothing. Dante crouched in front of her, blocking the body from view. Look at me. She didn't. Elena. Her gaze found his. He removed his coat and placed it around her shoulders. It smelled faintly of cedar and cold air. You came back, she said. I never went far. Because of the ledger? Because someone fired at you. You believed there would be another attempt. Yes. And you left me here anyway. Regret appeared in the slight lowering of his eyes. It was gone, almost immediately. I sent 2 men to watch the building. Excellent work. They were found unconscious in the alley. That silenced her. Dante stood and gave quick orders. One guard covered the window. Another photographed the officer and searched his pockets. Elena looked at the ledger. "Pier 19, she said. "What happened there?" Dante glanced toward his men. "Not here. Then somewhere else." "You're coming with me." "I'm not going anywhere with you. A sniper has a line of sight into this building. So close the curtains." "Elena." "No." She stepped closer, his coat gathered around her. "You entered my bakery knowing who I was. Someone tried to kill me. A police officer demanded my father's ledger, accused you of hiding his death, and got shot before he could name the person behind it. You don't get to issue one more command without giving me something true." Dante held her gaze. Then he removed the glove from his right hand. The pale scar crossed his knuckle and disappeared along his palm. "My father gave me this when I was 21, he said. He believed pain improved memory." Elena said nothing. "Your father stitched the wound closed in the back of a warehouse. He could have let me bleed. Instead, he saved my hand and told me I was still young enough to become better than the men raising me." The story did not fit the photograph she had found. Her father had looked comfortable beside Dante, almost proud. What was he to you? A strategist, a negotiator, sometimes an enemy. Dante's voice lowered. "The closest thing I had to an honest advisor. And Pier 19? His face closed again. "The place where I failed him." Before Elena could press further, the bakery lights went out. Darkness swallowed the loft. Dante moved beside her, one arm shielding her without pulling her close. From the street below came the roar of an engine. A vehicle smashed through the bakery's front entrance. Wood splintered, shelves collapsed. The impact shook the floor beneath Elena's feet. A man shouted downstairs. Then came gunfire. Dante pushed the ledger into her hands. "There's another exit. The dumbwaiter shaft. Show me." They crossed the loft, while his guards fired toward the staircase. Elena kicked aside a stack of flour sacks and opened a narrow wooden panel in the wall. The shaft had not worked in decades, but an old maintenance ladder still ran down to the basement. Dante looked into the darkness. "You first. I'm not leaving my employees' records, my cash, and every order for the week to armed strangers. You can replace paper. This bakery was my grandmother's. You cannot replace yourself." Another bullet tore through the loft door. Dante stepped closer. "Trust me for 30 seconds. Elena searched his face. He had lied by omission, controlled information, brought danger to her door. But he had returned. He had put himself between her and every shot. She climbed into the shaft. Dante followed, closing the panel above them. They descended into darkness, the ledger pressed beneath Elena's arm. Dust coated her palms. The ladder shook each time something heavy struck the floor overhead. Halfway down, Dante stopped. "Do you hear that?" Elena listened. Not gunfire, a child crying. The sound came from behind the basement wall. "There are no children here," she whispered. The crying stopped. A woman's voice replaced it. "Elena," her mother's voice. Impossible. Her mother had been dead for 6 years. Elena nearly lost her grip. Dante caught her wrist. The voice came again through a small speaker hidden between the bricks. "Elena, don't trust him." Static crackled. Then a man spoke. "Bring the ledger to St. Aurelia Church before midnight, or the girl dies." A photograph slid from a narrow gap in the wall and landed on the basement floor. Elena climbed down the final rungs and picked it up. Mia sat bound to a chair, her face wet with tears. Behind her stood the woman in the red coat. On the back of the photograph, someone had written a name, Sofia Moretti. Elena stared at it. Her father's missing sister. The woman her family had buried 20 years ago. Dante took the photograph from her trembling hand. His expression turned colder than she had yet seen. I watched Sofia Moretti die. A phone began ringing inside the ledger. The ringing came from inside the ledger. Elena stared at the cracked leather cover. Dante set the photograph on a flour barrel and opened the book. The sound grew louder near the spine. He ran his thumb along the binding until a strip of leather lifted beneath his nail. A phone no larger than a matchbox had been hidden inside. The screen displayed one word: answer. Dante looked at Elena. They want you frightened enough to stop thinking. My assistant is tied to a chair, and they sent proof she was alive. That means they need something from you more than they need her dead. That is not comforting. It isn't meant to be, he answered and held the device between them. A man's distorted voice filled the basement. Midnight, Saint Aurelia. Elena comes alone. Elena looked at the clock above the cold storage door. 8:47. Let me speak to Mia. A pause. Then a chair scraped across concrete. Elena? Mia's voice shook. I'm sorry. They said my mother was hurt. I got into the car, and then a sharp sound cut her off. Elena stepped toward the phone. Touch her again, and you get nothing. The distorted man laughed. Marco's temper, Sofia's nerve. You knew my father. I knew what he became. Dante's hand went still. Elena noticed. What did he become? She asked. Ask Russo why your father was carrying a gun at Pier 19. Dante's expression revealed nothing now. The caller continued. Bring the ledger sealed. If a page is missing, the girl loses a finger. If Russo comes within 3 blocks, she loses something else. The line went dead. Elena reached for the phone. Dante closed his fist around it. You are not going alone. If they see you, they already expect me to ignore the warning. This isn't a strategy exercise. No, it is a transfer. He turned the tiny device over. A green light blinked along the edge. They are tracking it. Dante crushed the phone beneath his heel. The ringing stopped. So is every chance of them contacting us, Elena said. They will contact us again. How can you know that? Because they want you at the church. He picked up the photograph and studied the wall behind Mia. Grey concrete, a rusted pipe, part of a painted number near the floor. You know the place? Elena asked. No, but someone expects me to recognize it. Above them, the shooting ceased. The silence felt worse. Dante removed his own phone and called one of his men. No answer. He tried again. Nothing. Elena climbed toward the shaft. Dante caught the ladder before she reached the second rung. Stay here. My bakery is upstairs. There may be men waiting beside the panel, and there may be people bleeding. Their eyes held. Then Dante went first. He climbed without a sound, opened the panel an inch, and waited. Elena could hear her own pulse in the darkness. After several seconds, he pushed into the loft. She followed. The bakery looked as though a storm had passed through it. The vehicle that crashed through the front window had reversed back onto the street, leaving tire marks across the tile. Chairs lay splintered beneath the wheels. The display case had collapsed. Butter, glass, fruit filling, and blood streaked the floor. One of Dante's guards sat against the wall, holding pressure to his thigh. The other stood near the ruined entrance with a gun lowered. They pulled out, he said. Police are 3 minutes away. Description? Dante asked. 4 men, masks, no plates. Any taken? The guard looked toward the back corridor. Luca. Dante's face changed by almost nothing. Elena still saw it. Alive? He asked. Last I saw. A second kidnapping. Another open wound. Dante turned toward the street. already calculating. Elena's attention fell on the dark smear near the espresso machine. Beside it lay a silver cufflink engraved with a bird. A raven. She picked it up. Dante saw the object and crossed the room in 2 strides. Where was that? Here. He took it from her, his thumb tracing the symbol. You recognize it? Yes. Whose is it? My brother's. The answer landed harder than Elena expected. You have a brother? Had. She watched his face. You said had, but you're holding his cufflink. Adrian died 7 years ago. Did you watch him die too? Dante looked at her. She regretted the cruelty, but not enough to apologize. A siren turned onto the block. Dante slipped the cufflink into his pocket. We leave now. Elena looked around the bakery. At the crushed chairs her grandmother had refinished by hand. At the wedding cake waiting beneath a plastic dome. At the front wall where morning light used to fall across the floor. Someone had tried to destroy the one place that had remained hers. Her sadness did not come as tears. It settled into her spine. Give me 5 minutes. We do not have 5 minutes. I am not asking. She crossed into the kitchen, took a clean apron from a hook, and wrapped the ledger inside it. Then she opened the safe beneath the prep counter. Dante watched her remove a small pistol. His brows rose. My grandmother ran a bakery through 3 protection wars, Elena said. She believed in yeast, prayer, and practical insurance. Do you know how to use it? Elena checked the magazine. My father taught me. The answer appeared to trouble him. They left through the back as police vehicles crowded the front. Dante's sedan waited in the alley with its engine running. Elena expected to be forced inside. Instead, he opened the door and waited for her choice. That small act mattered more than it should have. She got in. The car moved through side streets, while Dante's wounded guard was taken in a second vehicle. Rain blurred the city into streaks of red and gold. Elena sat opposite Dante, the wrapped ledger on her lap. Tell me about Pier 19. He looked out the window. No. You said someone was manipulating me with incomplete information. They are. So are you. His eyes returned to hers. The car passed beneath a bridge, plunging them into shadow. Pier 19 was controlled by my father, he said. He used it for shipments that did not appear on any manifest. Drugs? Weapons? Cash? People? Elena's stomach tightened. My father worked for him. Your father discovered what the pier was really being used for. Young women were being moved through cargo containers and sold through private clubs. The rain tapped softly against the roof. Elena's hands closed around the ledger. He tried to stop it. Yes. With you? I gave him access codes, guard rotations, names. Why? Dante looked down at his scarred hand. Because he once told me I was still young enough to become better. Elena saw her father in a warehouse, stitching a wound while offering mercy to a dangerous young man. What went wrong? Someone learned about the plan. The pier was cleared before we arrived. Marco accused me of betraying him. Did you? No. The answer came without hesitation. He drew a gun, Dante continued. Not at me, at my father. Then the lights went out. Shots were fired. A fire started in the south warehouse. And my father? Gone. You said you failed him. I chose to pull my brother from the fire instead of following Marco. Elena watched the muscles in his jaw tighten. Adrian survived that night. For 4 years. What happened after? He began investigating the person who betrayed us. Then his car went over a bridge. The cufflink. The attack. Someone wanted Dante to believe his dead brother had returned. Or wanted Elena to believe Dante was surrounded by ghosts. The sedan turned sharply into an underground garage. Dante's driver lowered the security gate behind them. The building above was an old hotel converted into private residences. Marble floors reflected low amber light. No staff appeared as Dante led Elena through a service elevator to the top floor. His home was colder than she expected. Not in temperature, in absence. Grey stone, dark wood. Art chosen for value rather than affection. No family photographs, no clutter. Nothing that revealed the person who slept there. Then Elena noticed a small ceramic bowl on a side table. Blue glaze, uneven rim, a crack repaired with gold. Her father had made one just like it during the year he tried pottery. Dante followed her gaze. Marco gave it to me. You kept it? Yes. That one word held more grief than everything he had said in the car. A man entered from the adjoining room, tall, silver-haired, immaculate suit. Dante's posture changed. Not fear, readiness. Elena Moretti, the man said. You have your father's eyes. She did not offer her hand. And you are Vittorio Russo, Dante's father, the man who had controlled Pier 19. Vittorio looked toward the ledger. I hoped that book had burned with Marco. Dante stepped between them. You knew it survived. I suspected. You told me Marco destroyed the evidence. I told you what was necessary to keep you alive. Elena unwrapped the ledger. What is inside this? Vittorio's gaze settled on her with quiet contempt. A record of debts your father lacked the courage to collect. Dante's voice lowered. Be careful. Vittorio smiled. There was no warmth in it. You bring a baker into my family's home and speak to me of caution. This is my home. Everything you have came from me. Dante took one step closer. Then leave with what you brought. The room went silent. Vittorio studied his son for a long moment before looking back at Elena. Marco was not the hero you remember. You expect me to believe you? No, I expect you to read. He reached inside his jacket. Dante's hand moved toward his weapon. Vittorio withdrew an envelope and placed it on the table. Inside was a photograph. Marco Moretti stood on Pier 19 beside a cargo container. A gun rested in his hand. At his feet lay a man bleeding from the chest. On the far side of the image, partially hidden by smoke, stood Sofia in her red coat. A date was printed along the bottom, 3 years after her supposed death. Elena turned the photograph over. Her father's handwriting covered the back. Sofia knows where the children were taken. Dante cannot know. Adrian already chose her side. Elena read the sentence twice. Then a second photograph slipped from the envelope. Mia sat in the same chair as before. But the woman standing behind her was no longer wearing the red coat. Mia was. The real Sofia stood beside the camera, her reflection visible in a broken mirror. Older now, alive, and holding Dante's missing guard, Luca, at gunpoint. A handwritten message ran across the bottom. Ask Dante which brother was buried. Dante took the photograph. For the first time since Elena met him, his hand shook. From the hallway came the slow sound of applause. A man stepped through the open door. He had Dante's eyes, Dante's height, and a pale burn scar running from his jaw to his collar. Hello, brother, Adrian Russo said. Dante did not reach for his gun. That frightened Elena more than if he had. Adrian Russo stood in the doorway, with rain darkening the shoulders of his coat, one hand tucked into his pocket. His burn scar pulled slightly when he smiled. Vittorio's face lost all color. You're dead, he said. Adrian tilted his head. That was the arrangement. Dante's hand closed around the photograph until the paper bent. I identified your body. You identified what remained after the car burned. I carried your coffin. Yes. The word struck the room like a slap. Elena looked from one brother to the other. They shared the same stillness, the same watchful eyes, but where Dante's restraint felt forged by discipline, Adrian's seemed built from pleasure. He enjoyed the silence he had created. Behind Elena, Vittorio moved toward the side table. Adrian drew a pistol without looking at him. "Sit down, father." Vittorio stopped. Dante's voice was quiet. "Where is Luca?" "Alive." "Mia?" "Also alive, for the moment." Elena stepped forward. "You kidnapped a 17-year-old girl to make an entrance." Adrian looked at her, as though noticing her for the first time. "No. Sofia took the girl. I merely took advantage of the confusion." "You're working with Sofia." "Sometimes." "That means no," Dante said. Adrian's smile deepened. "You were always good at hearing what people avoided." Dante placed the photograph on the table. "Why fake your death?" "To survive our father." Vittorio let out a dry laugh. "You survived because I allowed it." Adrian turned the gun toward him. Dante moved between them. "Not here." "Still protecting him?" Adrian asked. "I'm protecting the truth from dying before I hear it." For the first time, Adrian's amusement faded. Elena watched the brothers measure each other. No embrace, no disbelief left in Dante's face. Only calculation built over grief. "You knew about Pier 19, Dante said. "I knew before Marco did. You chose Sofia's side. I chose the women inside those containers. And then you disappeared. I tried to expose the network. Father found out. Marco helped me escape." Elena looked at Vittorio. "My father saved him." Vittorio lowered himself into a chair with deliberate calm. "Marco betrayed everyone who trusted him." "Did he?" Adrian asked. "Or did he discover the Russo empire was built on children?" The word children changed the room. Dante turned toward his father. Vittorio's expression remained composed, but his right thumb rubbed the edge of his signet ring. A nervous habit. Elena had seen men do the same thing at the bakery when lying to their wives about money. "How young?" Dante asked. Vittorio said nothing. Dante crossed the space between them and placed both hands on the chair arms, trapping his father without touching him. "How young?" Vittorio stared up at his son. "Old enough to have debts." Dante struck him. The blow knocked Vittorio sideways. Blood appeared at the corner of his mouth. No one moved to help him. Adrian watched with grim satisfaction. Elena did not. Dante. He looked at her. She saw the violence trembling beneath his control, and beneath that, something more dangerous. Shame. "You did not put them in those containers," she said. His eyes stayed on hers. "But I wore his name. And now you decide what it means." The rage did not disappear. It changed direction. Dante straightened and turned to Adrian. "Where is the original evidence?" Adrian glanced at the ledger in Elena's hands. "Part of it is there." "Part?" Marco divided the records. Roots in the ledger, names on microfilm, payments stored in a coded account. "Where?" "Sofia knows." Elena opened the ledger on the table. "Then why does she want this?" "Because she cannot decode the account without it." Dante's gaze moved across the pages. "What is the key?" Adrian pointed to Elena's silver pendant. "The bell." Elena touched the charm at her throat. "My father gave this to my mother." "He gave her half," Adrian said. "Sofia has the other." Vittorio laughed through his split lip. "You still believe Sofia intends to expose anyone?" Adrian's eyes narrowed. Vittorio wiped blood from his mouth with his thumb. "She wants the money." A phone vibrated inside Adrian's coat. He removed it and checked the screen. Something shifted in his face. Dante noticed. "What?" Adrian did not answer. The lights went out. A second later, Gunfire tore through the windows. Dante pulled Elena to the floor as glass rained over them. Adrian fired toward the dark balcony. Vittorio crawled behind the stone fireplace. A bullet struck the lamp above Elena, showering sparks across the carpet. Dante covered her with his body. "Stay down. You keep saying that, and you keep ignoring me." He fired twice toward the window. A man outside cried out. Adrian reached the hallway and shouted into his phone. "The west stairwell is compromised." "You brought them here," Dante said. "No, they followed your father." Vittorio's voice came from behind the fireplace. "They are not mine." Another window shattered. Elena saw a red laser move across Dante's back. She grabbed his collar and pulled. The bullet passed where his shoulder had been and struck the table, blasting through the envelope of photographs. Dante rolled, returned fire, then looked at her. Neither spoke. The red point appeared again, this time on Elena's chest. Dante moved faster. He knocked her behind the sofa and took the shot in his side. The sound left Elena before she felt herself make it. Dante fell to one knee. Blood spread beneath his hand. Adrian fired through the broken window until the laser vanished. "Elena," Dante said. She was already beside him. She pressed both hands against the wound. Warm blood pushed between her fingers. "Through and through?" she asked. He inhaled sharply. "I think so." "Do not think. Tell me." "No bullet." "Good. Your bedside manner is severe." "You are not in a bed." His mouth almost moved. Then his face tightened with pain. Adrian crossed toward them. Dante raised his gun. The barrel pointed directly at his brother. Adrian stopped. "You think I arranged this?" "I think you entered my home with armed men outside. They were meant to protect us." "From whom?" The answer came from Vittorio. "Senator Vale." Everyone looked at him. Vittorio rose slowly from behind the fireplace, one hand braced against the stone. "The political connection," Elena said. Vittorio looked at the ruined photographs. Vale protected the ports. Judges buried cases. Police redirected investigations. My ships moved what his donors paid for. Dante's face had gone pale. "How long?" "Before you were born." Adrian's gun shifted toward Vittorio. "You told me Vale was a client." "He was a partner." Elena felt Dante's blood soaking through her sleeves. "Then Vale wants the ledger destroyed." "No," Vittorio said. "He wants the account." The room fell quiet, except for the alarm sounding somewhere below. "What account?" Dante asked. Vittorio looked at Elena. The one containing every payment made through Pier 19. Politicians, judges, businessmen, foreign ministers. "How much?" Adrian asked. "Enough to start a war." Another phone rang. This time, the sound came from the table. The tiny device Dante had crushed in the bakery lay beside the ledger. Its shattered screen glowed. Dante looked at it. "That is impossible." Elena picked it up carefully. The caller ID read MIA. She answered. "Mia." A woman spoke. "Elena, bring the pendant to the church." "Sophia." Silence confirmed it. Elena tightened her grip on the phone. "Let Mia speak." "She cannot." Dante's gaze sharpened. "What did you do to her?" Elena asked. "I protected her longer than I should have." A muffled struggle came through the line. Then Mia's voice, faint and breathless. "Elena, don't come. The church is wired." The call ended. Adrian swore. Dante tried to stand. Elena forced him back down. "You are bleeding." "Mia is in a building full of explosives, and you will be useless if you collapse on the stairs." Adrian looked toward the hallway. "I can get to the church." "No," Dante said. "You can barely stand." And you have lied for 7 years. I stayed dead to protect you. You let me mourn you. I let you live." The brothers stared at each other across the darkened room. Vittorio moved toward the service door. Elena saw him. "Where are you going?" He stopped with his hand on the latch. Dante turned. Vittorio's expression became strangely peaceful. A father should know when he has outlived his usefulness. Adrian raised his pistol. "Step away from the door." Vittorio opened it. A shot came from the hallway. He staggered backward. For a moment, he remained upright, surprise softening his face. Then he collapsed. A masked gunman appeared beyond him. Dante fired from the floor. The man fell. Adrian rushed into the hallway, while Elena crawled to Vittorio. The bullet had entered below his ribs. Blood spread rapidly across his white shirt. Dante pressed his hand over the wound despite everything. "Call a doctor," he ordered. Vittorio caught his wrist. "No, you do not get to decide." "I decided years ago." Dante's face hardened. Vittorio looked past him at Elena. "Marco did not die at Pier 19. Elena stopped breathing. "Where is he?" Vittorio coughed. Blood touched his teeth. Veil kept him alive. "Why?" "To open the account." "Where?" Vittorio's grip weakened. The church was never the meeting place. Elena leaned closer. "Then what is it?" "A funeral." His eyes shifted toward Adrian, who had returned from the hallway. Something like recognition passed across Vittorio's face. Then fear. "Dante," he whispered, "that is not your brother." Adrian fired. The bullet struck Vittorio in the heart. Dante's father died with his hand wrapped around his son's wrist. For 1 second, silence swallowed the room. Dante looked at the body. Then at the man holding the smoking gun. Adrian's expression was empty. "You heard him," Elena said. Dante rose, despite the blood pouring from his side. "Who are you?" The man with Adrian's face smiled. "Ask Sophia." He threw a metal cylinder onto the floor. White smoke filled the room. Elena reached for Dante, but someone struck her from behind. She heard Dante shout her name. Then nothing. When Elena opened her eyes, she was lying on cold stone. Candles burned along the walls of St. Aurelia Church. Her wrists were tied in front of her. The silver pendant was gone. Mia sat beside the altar, unconscious but breathing. Luca lay near the front pew with blood on his shirt. The woman in the red coat stood beneath the stained glass window. Sophia Moretti looked older than the photographs, but Elena recognized her father's mouth and her own eyes. "You look like your mother," Sophia said. Elena pushed herself upright. "Where is Dante?" "He is making a choice." "What choice?" A church bell rang overhead. The sound shook dust from the rafters. Sophia glanced toward a wooden door behind the altar. "Whether to save you or the man who murdered his brother." The door opened. Dante entered. One hand pressed to his wounded side. His gun pointed at the man who wore Adrian's face. Behind them came another figure, thin, grey-haired, walking with a cane. Elena knew him before the candlelight reached his face. Her father stopped at the foot of the altar. "Hello, sweetheart." Elena forgot the ropes around her wrists. She forgot Sophia, the candles, the blood on the church floor. For 11 years, she had imagined this moment in fragments. Her father walking through the bakery door, his voice behind her in a crowd, his hand lifting in apology from the other side of a train platform. None of those imagined versions had prepared her for the man before her. Marco Moretti's shoulders had narrowed. Silver ran through his hair. A pale scar curved from his left temple to his jaw, pulling one side of his mouth when he tried to smile. But his eyes were unchanged. Warm brown, tired, hers. "Sweetheart," he said again. Elena rose unsteadily. "You're alive." Marco's smile broke. "Yes." The word hurt more than death would have. She crossed the space between them and struck him. The sound echoed beneath the church dome. Marco did not defend himself. Elena struck his chest again with both bound hands. "You were alive." "I know. My mother died waiting for you." His face folded inward. "I know. I buried an empty coffin." "I know." Her next blow had no strength behind it. Marco caught her wrists gently and pulled her against him. Elena resisted for one breath. Then 11 years collapsed. She pressed her forehead to his shoulder, breathing in dust, wool, and the faint scent of tobacco she remembered from childhood. Her body shook, but no sound came. Marco held her, as though any pressure might break her. "I tried to come home," he whispered. "Every day, I tried." Elena pulled away. "Trying is not coming." "No." "Where were you?" A gun clicked behind them. The man with Adrian's face stood near the altar, his pistol aimed at Dante. "Family reunions make people careless," he said. Dante remained upright through force of will. Blood had soaked the side of his shirt, yet his weapon did not waver. "Put the gun down," Dante said. The impostor smiled. "You still give orders as though the room belongs to you." "Who are you?" Elena asked. The man looked toward Sofia. She lowered her eyes. Marco stepped between Elena and the weapon. "His name is Elias Vale." The church seemed to tighten around the name. "Senator Vale's son," Dante said. "Unacknowledged son," Elias corrected. "A distinction my father considered important." The resemblance to Adrian was nearly perfect, but Elena saw the differences now. The bridge of the nose was too straight. The left ear lacked a small notch visible in Dante's old photograph. "You changed your face," she said. Elias touched the burn scar along his jaw. Adrian's body was useful, so were his medical records. Dante's expression became still. "You killed him." Elias's smile disappeared. "My father ordered the crash. I made sure Adrian survived long enough to understand why." The hand holding Dante's gun tightened. Elena saw vengeance gather in him. Elias saw it too. "Go ahead," he said. "Shoot me, and the dead man's switch activates." He raised a small remote. A red light blinked beneath his thumb. "The church?" Elena asked. "The church, the records beneath it, and everyone inside." Mia stirred beside the altar. Elena moved toward her, but Sofia blocked the way. "Not yet." Elena turned on her aunt. "You took her." "I saved her." "You tied her to a chair." "Because Elias's men were following her." The photograph had to look convincing. Mia opened her eyes. "Elena? I'm here." Sofia stepped aside. Elena hurried to Mia and knelt beside her. The girl's cheek was bruised, but her breathing was steady. "Can you stand?" "I think so." Elena helped her upright. Mia looked toward Marco and frowned through the haze of exhaustion. "Is that your dad?" Elena's throat tightened. "Yes." The answer felt impossible. Luca groaned near the pews. Dante's guard had been shot through the shoulder, but he was conscious. Dante looked toward Sofia. "You sent the warning through Elena's mother's recorded voice." Sofia nodded. "Marco kept old tapes. You used a dead woman's voice to frighten her, to make her listen." Elena's gaze snapped toward her. "My mother trusted you." Pain crossed Sofia's face. "She trusted the wrong people. So did I." Marco moved beside his sister. "We do not have time for this." "We have exactly as much time as Elias allows," Dante said. Elias looked pleased. "Finally, someone understands." He pointed the remote toward the stained glass window. Outside, headlights appeared in the rain. Vehicles rolled into the church courtyard. Senator Vale had arrived. The front doors opened. 6 armed men entered first, spreading between the pews. Behind them came an elderly man in a dark overcoat, silver hair combed neatly back. Senator Nathaniel Vale did not look at his son. He looked at the ledger lying on the altar. "Marco," he said, "you have caused an extraordinary amount of trouble." Marco faced him. "Not enough." Vale's gaze moved to Dante. "You should have died with your father. Many people have been disappointed today." Vale smiled faintly. Vittorio understood compromise. He understood profit. They are often the same thing. Dante's eyes shifted toward the armed men. Elena recognized the calculation. Distance, angles, ammunition. He could kill 2, perhaps 3, before the others fired. Not enough. Vale approached the altar. "Give me the ledger and the pendant." Elias raised the remote higher. "You are forgetting who has control." Vale finally looked at his son. "No, Elias. You are forgetting who taught you to mistake possession for power." One of Vale's men raised a weapon and shot Elias through the hand. The remote fell. Dante moved. He fired at the nearest gunman, while Marco pulled Elena and Mia behind the altar. Sophia kicked the remote beneath a pew. Gunfire erupted through the church. Dante dropped behind a stone column, firing in controlled bursts. Luca dragged himself toward a fallen weapon. Vale's men scattered. Elena saw Elias crawling toward the remote, blood pouring from his ruined hand. She ran. "Elena!" Marco shouted. She reached the pew first and kicked the device farther into the aisle. Elias caught her ankle. She fell hard against the stone. His fingers dug into her skin. "You should have stayed in the bakery." Elena drove her heel into his face. His grip loosened. She grabbed the remote. Elias reached inside his coat. A knife flashed. Before he could strike, Sophia stepped between them. The blade entered her stomach. Her breath left in a soft sound. Elias pulled the knife free. Marco shot him. The bullet struck Elias in the chest. He fell beside the pew, staring up at the painted saints until his eyes emptied. Marco dropped his gun and caught Sophia before she hit the floor. "No," he whispered. She gripped his coat. "The account," she said. "End it." "We will. Promise me." "I promise." Her gaze found Elena. "I'm sorry." Elena knelt beside her. There were 1,000 accusations left between them. Only one truth mattered now. "You protected Mia." Sophia's eyes filled. "Yes." Elena took her hand. Sophia exhaled once. Then she was gone. Across the church, Dante fired his final round. The last of Vale's men dropped his weapon and surrendered. Vale stood alone in the center aisle. He did not look frightened. Men like him built their lives on the belief that consequences belong to other people. Dante approached, one hand pressed to his wound. Vale adjusted his coat. "You have no evidence that will survive scrutiny." Marco lifted the ledger. "I have roots." Elena held up the pendant. "We have the key." A voice came from the rear pew. "And I have the recordings." Mia stood beside Luca, holding a phone. Vale turned. The girl's hands shook, but her voice did not. "I recorded everything after they took me. Names, places, the senator ordering people killed." Vale's composure cracked. "You foolish child." He moved toward her. Dante struck him across the face. Vale fell to his knees. Dante stood over him. "This is the part where men like you expect death." Vale looked up through blood. "You are no better than your father." Dante glanced toward Elena. She remembered what she had told him. "Now you decide what the name means." He lowered his weapon. "No, Dante said. Death would keep your secrets. Sirens rose beyond the church walls. Not local police. Federal vehicles flooded the courtyard. Marco looked toward Adrian's, Elias's body. Your brother arranged the investigation before he died, he told Dante. He gave copies of the first records to an agent he trusted. We needed the ledger to complete the chain. Dante stared at him. Adrian knew you were alive. Yes, and he never told me. He believed you were being watched. He was right. Vale's face changed as federal agents entered the church. For the first time, the senator looked old. The lead agent walked toward him with restraints. Nathaniel Vale, you are under arrest for human trafficking, conspiracy, murder, bribery, and obstruction of justice. Vale looked at Dante. This will destroy your family. Dante's gaze remained cold. That family died at Pier 19. The agents took Vale away. Outside, rain washed blood from the church steps. Emergency workers carried Luca and Mia to waiting ambulances. Marco sat beside Sophia's covered body until the doors closed around her. Elena stood beneath the stone archway, arms wrapped around herself. Dante joined her. His face was pale. You need a hospital. So do you. I wasn't shot. You threw yourself at a man with a knife. He insulted my bakery. Dante looked at her. A tired laugh escaped him before pain cut it short. Elena moved closer. You came to the church. Yes. They told you to choose between me and Marco. Yes. Who did you choose? His eyes held hers. You. The honesty left no place for either of them to hide. Elena looked toward her father. You knew he was alive. Not until tonight. But you suspected something. I suspected Vale kept a witness. I did not know who. She nodded. The old version of herself would have demanded certainty before allowing trust. That woman had spent 11 years listening for footsteps. Elena reached for Dante's hand. He looked down at their joined fingers. I cannot promise you a quiet life, he said. I don't want your life. His gaze returned to hers. I want my own. You may stand beside it. Something softened in his face. Understood. And you never issue orders in my bakery. Negotiable. No. Understood. She touched his cheek, careful of the dried blood along his skin. Dante leaned into her palm by the smallest degree. Then the ambulance crew arrived and separated them. 6 months later, Belladonna Bakery reopened. The blue door had been repainted. New glass filled the front windows. Mia returned 3 afternoons a week while finishing school, and her mother insisted on checking every unfamiliar customer through binoculars from the apartment across the street. Marco worked in the kitchen. He did not ask to be forgiven. That helped. Some days Elena spoke to him for hours. Other days she could barely look at him. He accepted both without complaint, arriving before dawn to knead dough and leaving notes beside the coffee machine. The federal case expanded across 4 countries. Judges resigned. Police officers were arrested. Shipping companies collapsed. The coded account funded survivor compensation, legal aid, and shelters under court supervision. Dante dismantled the operations his father had built. He kept the legal businesses. The dangerous men who had depended on the old Russo empire discovered that its new leader did not confuse mercy with weakness. On the bakery's first morning back, Elena stood behind the counter, arranging orange-glazed cornetti. At 4:13, the back door opened. She reached for the rolling pin. Dante entered carrying a paper bag. You have a key, she asked. Marco gave it to me. From the kitchen, her father called. I was bribed. With what? Dante placed the bag on the counter. Inside was a repaired ceramic bowl, blue glaze joined by lines of gold. Elena looked at him. "The one my father gave you. It belongs here." She ran her fingers along the repaired crack. Some things don't return to what they were. No, sometimes they remain broken. Yes. She looked up. And sometimes the repair becomes part of them. Dante reached across the counter and brushed flour from her cheek. He had protected her before she trusted him, respected her before she loved him, stood beside her without asking her to become smaller. Elena rose onto her toes and kissed him. It was not desperate. It was not uncertain. It was a choice. When they parted, Dante rested his forehead against hers. "Is the coffee better now?" he asked. "No. I have invested heavily in this business. You bought one espresso machine. It was an excellent machine. You still order black coffee in a bakery." His hand settled at her waist. "And yet I keep returning." The front bell chimed. Mia entered, stopped, and covered her eyes. "The shop is opening in 10 minutes. Please behave like responsible adults." Elena smiled against Dante's shoulder. Morning light spread across the new floor. For years, she had believed safety meant locked doors, remembered footsteps, and never needing anyone. Now, the bakery filled with voices. Her father in the kitchen. Mia complaining about the schedule. Dante beside her, dangerous to the world and gentle where it mattered. Elena turned the sign on the front door. Open. This time, when the bell rang, she did not listen for ghosts. She welcomed the future inside.